Welcome to the Covers and Pages podcast, the cozy corner where books come to life. Tune in every week as host Rese flips through stories with authors, narrators, and the amazing folks behind your favorite bookstores. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's flip through the pages.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Covers and Pages podcast. My name is Rese, and Covers and Pages podcast is all about celebrating our authors, narrators, book influencers, and bookstore owners who continue to empower and love and grow in this book space. So, I have someone with me right now. If you're watching, you see her. If you are listening, let me introduce her, okay? L.R. Jackson was born and raised in Maryland's Eastern Shore. She's a fun and spontaneous Gemini who has a passion for food and addiction to wings. Yes, we love wings. Okay, I'm going to ask you what kind.
Yes.
A little bit. When she's not writing, she's reading, cooking, or traveling. She has a huge appreciation for her readers and love hearing from them. Because listen, I be in her DMs, okay? Anyway.
I do. I love it.
Ladies and
we do
gentlemen.
this for you guys. So,
Yes.
if it's quiet and crickets, it's like, is anybody reading my book?
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, L.R. Jackson.
Yes.
How are you, dear?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you for coming on. I'm so excited about this conversation we're going to have. I was first introduced to you with reading that book pissed me off so
It has to be
bad.
Tainted Liberty.
It was.
As soon as you said that, I knew where you were going with it. I knew it was Tainted Liberties. Oh my gosh.
Because
know.
one thing, because why you gonna cheat on your black queen? But you know what? We gonna get into it.
Yes.
Because we gonna get into it.
Yeah, I have a funny story about that.
Good, because I want to listen.
Yeah.
But let's get to know the author first.
Okay.
Please, I read the bio, but please let everyone know who is L.R. Jackson.
The bio is pretty short and to the point. I am super private to an extent, I guess you could say. But I'm a mom. I just a girl from a small town who had these big dreams. I'm from a town that had a population of the town I lived in, maybe like 200 people. And the town where I went to school with had some more, but I'm not from a big city. So I had these big dreams. I went away to college, ended up being a mother, and so that's where my focus was for a long time. And then once my daughter got older and got her own friends, I was able to start pursuing some of my dreams. And that's pretty much what I do. I write. I read still. I'm a reader first. Reading is my first love. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, so I have that going on the side. So yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
So just tell me, where does some of your writing inspiration come from?
It really depends on the time. It really depends on what's going on in my life. So I can tell you that a lot of my inspiration comes from being surrounded by strong women. So most of my books, the women are the heroines in the story, without demasculating the men. So just growing up with strong women and being surrounded with them, it just gave me my own strength. And so that comes through on the pages. So that's inspiration. I love Black love. That's probably the biggest inspiration. I love Black love. I love everything about it. Times when I was single, I still was able to write romance and write what I wanted in a relationship. So that's pretty much where my inspiration comes from, where I draw it from.
And how long have you been writing?
I published my first novel in 2016.
Mhm.
It's been a long time. I was published under a publisher at that time, and I was with her until maybe 2018, I want to say. She decided to branch away from publishing, so I self published for a very long time and then ended up signing with Black Odyssey Media and had my first traditional deal.
What has been just some challenges you face as an author?
Some challenges I face are writer's block sometimes. There's this thing, and I think a lot of other authors can attest to this. You'll maybe get halfway or to the end of the story and then second guess yourself. Should I redo this? Does this sound right? And then you find yourself really not finishing because you're constantly trying to make it as best as you can. That's definitely a challenge. I would say the industry itself can be a challenge. A lot of times, some books, there's a popularity thing also. So if you're not as popular, it's like, you know, no one gets their hands on it. I love popularity. I think it's great for authors, but it can be challenging for newer authors, is what I'm saying. I don't consider myself a new author, but because this is my first traditional deal, it's kind of like I'm new in that space, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty much starting from the beginning in this aspect. So, yeah.
How do you handle just some of the feedback that you see on maybe like Goodreads, Amazon, Instagram, TikTok, like good or bad? Well, let's just do the bad because I mean, of course, the good is good, right?
Yeah.
But some
Uh-huh.
of that bad feedback that you have seen, or if I'm sure you have seen something that you was probably like, you probably could have saved your thumbs from typing all of that.
So I don't read a lot of reviews. I feel readers are entitled to how they feel, good or bad or indifferent. I'm just glad that they picked the book up and gave it a chance, especially if you've never read my work before.
Hmm.
If someone reaches out to me directly with the review, first of all, like I love hearing from readers when they've read my work. And if it's not so good, that I appreciate that as well. I actually did have someone reach out to me and say that they hated a particular section in one of my novels. And I explained to her why I wrote it that way and thanked her for reaching out to me. And I was appreciative that she took the time to not only read the book, but to give her feedback to me. So,
And we're gonna get into that because the way Tainted Liberties had out, I wanted to throw the damn book across the room.
I know. That book, I wrote Tainted Liberties in 2017, maybe 2017. This is what happened. When Trump ran for his first term, the world went crazy.
Hmm.
This was the first time. Um, just you couldn't get away from it on social media news. Everything was Trump and race, and more people were getting bold in comments and stuff with racial things. And I had so much frustration with what was going on in the world. I took every stereotype, as you can see, and every theme of differences and put it in a book. That was my outlet for that period. And so when I got approached by to traditionally publish a book and they say they wanted that one, I was like, oh, it's like, really? I said, well, I kind of wrote that book back when Trump was running for office. I kind of
Hmm.
want to put that away because that book it's heavy.
It's very heavy.
And we
Ooh.
have moved, yeah, and in my mind, it never occurred to me that this would be happening again.
Hmm.
my thought process was I wrote the book. It's to the side. We've got a whole nother president now. Let's leave that there. But I said, okay, I'll redo the book. And now here we are going through this again in 2025. I mean, like, of course you saw his wife wasn't perfect.
Right.
But his issue was it was fixable in a way. It was fixable. And to have these thoughts in his mind about the difference between the black women, the white women, I've actually heard black men say this. That's where that came from. I've heard
We
it
all have heard
firsthand,
it.
not just on social media. I've heard black men speak this way. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where that came in. So literally everything in that book are things I've heard, things I've read, things I see, things I've experienced. And that's how it all came together. And I think a lot of people enjoyed Sheldon and Eva's story out of everybody else in the whole novel. They kind of were very invested in
Right.
the two of them.
Yeah, and I don't want to ruin, I don't want to spoil anything from people who are listening to the podcast who haven't had the opportunity to read the book, but even just some of the work scenes and just stuff that he was saying about his boss. I'm like, this stuff happens in real life.
Yeah, like the first chapter, as soon as you
Oh, he said, "Oh, my girl started out with a bang." Like, I
yeah.
was like,
Uh-huh.
"Dang."
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have worked in corporate America for a very long time. I work in an industry that is not very diverse. And so, you tend to witness things, you tend to feel things. And so that's kind of where some of that, came from. Of course, I've never heard anybody speak that way, but you know what people are thinking sometimes and things of that nature. So it that
It's
just came to me like it's not for everybody, and I do understand that. And it is my only non-romance book.
mm-hmm.
But at the time that I wrote it, it was very, very necessary, I feel. And at first glance, people are going to think, oh, this is just about racism and this
Mm-hmm.
guy, Mark. It's not until you get further in the pages that you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing some of the how we think about certain
Right.
things as black people. And
Right.
so you get kind of all areas of just mess, stereotypes and things like that. So,
And I just love how the tables just turned, like they turn, and I'm
yeah,
like,
they turned for
for
everybody.
everybody, for
Yeah.
everybody.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
again, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that has
Mhm.
not read the book. Please go and read Tainted Liberties. It was a phenomenal book. Oh my God,
Thank
it was so
you.
good. It was so
Thank
good.
you. And I will
I
tell you that I had some people who didn't like the outcome in the original Tainted Liberties. It was the original Tainted Liberties was titled "The Land of the Free," and it had question marks after it.
hmm
And so Sheldon and Eva, that was a completely different outcome than what you
really.
read in Tainted Liberties. Yes, and a lot of people did not like what I did. Oh yeah,
Oh, we're gonna have to talk about that offline. But I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad my boy got it. I'm glad my boy got it together. Cause listen, he was
Yes,
headed down
yes.
destruction.
It's not for everybody, and I do understand that. And it is my only non-romance book.
hmm
But at the time that I wrote it, it was very, very necessary, I feel. And at first glance, people are going to think, oh, this is just about racism and this
hmm
guy, Mark. It's not until you get further in the pages that you
hmm
start seeing some of the how we think about certain
Right.
things as Black people, and
Right.
so you get kind of all areas of just mess, stereotypes and things like that. So
And I just love how the tables just turned, like they turn, and I'm
yeah,
like,
they turned for
for
everybody.
everybody, for
Yeah.
everybody.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
again, I do not. I don't want to ruin it for anybody that has
Mhm.
not read the book. Please go and read Tainted Liberties. It was a phenomenal book. Oh my God,
Thank
it was so
you.
good. It was so
Thank
good.
you. And I will
I
tell you that I had some people who didn't like the outcome in the original Tainted Liberties. It was the original Tainted Liberties was titled "The Land of the Free," and it had question marks after it.
hmm
And so Sheldon and Eva, that was a completely different outcome than what you
really.
read in Tainted Liberties. Yes, and a lot of people did not like what I did. Oh yeah,
Oh, we're gonna talk about that offline. But I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad my boy got it. I'm glad my boy got it together. Cause listen, he was
Yes,
headed down
yes.
destruction.
Yeah.
He was headed down destruction. I was like, child, baby, your side chick gone, your main
Mhm.
woman gone.
Yeah.
Now you're just lonely with your dumb self.
Right. And had no idea that she would be strong enough to do what she did.
Exactly.
But it goes to show how a woman can change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when circumstances are like that. I
Right.
think what happened now, should she have changed? I don't think so. I think her change, the way she changed, was just being petty. It wasn't
Right.
her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she just had this time where she was just mellow and going to church. It was like, you know what? I'm about to become somebody different. Religion changed her.
Mm-hmm. It did.
And she
And
wanted to become somebody else, you know?
and I'm glad it changed. Oh God, you know what? I'm not gonna say nothing else. I talked about that because I don't want to ruin it because I feel like I didn't drop too many little Easter eggs. But
Yeah.
y'all go and read that book. Oh my God, that book was so good. I was listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time. And
Yeah.
again, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I wanted to throw that book across the room. I was like, God darn it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, it was heavy to write it. So I can only imagine how it was to read it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've actually read the book. I think I've just read it in the aspect of edits, like going through the editing process. But I don't think I've actually taken the time to read it from A to Z just because.
Right.
So
Oh,
you
go.
really have to be in a certain headspace.
Mm-hmm.
And after writing it, it was so heavy for me after writing it the first time. I took like a 4 month break from writing because
Mm-hmm.
I had to decompress. And then the same the second time, I took like a month or so off because now I have traditional deadlines. So I can't just not write. But I was able to take off a good month or so just to kind of get my head back in the game.
And I'm so happy I went into reading the book with just an open mind.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
that people need to go into reading Tainted Liberties with an open mind. Matter of fact, don't even
Absolutely.
read the back of the book. Just go straight into reading it. Like read
Yeah.
the trigger warnings, read and go with the prologue and just keep it going. Because like you said, it'll piss you off, but as you continue to read,
Hmm.
it does it gets better.
Yeah, and this was probably the hardest blurb to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have multiple points of views, which I am a fan of. I am sensitive to some readers don't like that. They feel like it's too much going on. But it was really important to have each character have their own point of view for the overall story to tie together in one nice bow. It wouldn't have been able to work that way from one or two points of views. So you've got all these multiple points of views, even down to the kids.
Right.
But it allows you to see their inner thinkings. They're sitting at the table acting like they're okay, but in their mind, they're despising what their father is saying. So then
Right.
right away, you get to see their thoughts on certain topics.
Right.
So, but yeah, the blurb was kind of tough because it's like, okay, it's not romance, it's all these points of view. So that was a little challenging, but we got it together.
Cause like even just the things that the father was saying about the daughter and her situation that she had going on.
Yeah,
That
I
was something.
know. I know.
Oh,
So,
Mark, child.
I know. I know.
And you couldn't have given him the most whitest name ever. Mark and
And
Amy.
Amy too. Oh Lord. But you know what's funny? My brother-in-law's name was Mark. That's where I got it from. Me and my sister was talking when she was married, and she said his name, and I was like, "Oh, that's," because at first I didn't know what it was going to be. I was like, "Oh, there it is, right there. I'm going to use that."
That's a good question to ask. Do you find yourself just kind of struggling coming up with different character names?
Um, it depends. So anytime, this is what I do. Anytime I hear a name I like or see a name, like Ireland came from, I was at a restaurant and the waitress was like, I'm your waitress, Ireland. And immediately I knew I would use that name somewhere. And so I have a bank of names. And so I go through it and see which one I think relates more to the character. And if nothing comes up, I just kind of wait it out, let it fester until it's right. Because the name has to fit how I envision the character.
I'm just waiting on the day, someone used my real name, Sharice.
Charisse is very pretty.
Thank you. I'm like,
Charisse is very
I need
pretty,
for
yeah.
somebody to use my name, but make me a good character. Cause then you gonna have me hating my name, like I can't stand Sharice.
Yeah, I've used friends' names before. I've used, if you read The Accidental Queen, you know about Shaya. So my daughter's name is Shay. So I've used names of family and friends sometimes. I don't do it a lot, but sometimes I will.
Now, how did the collaboration with you and Black Odyssey Media come about? Because I always tell people, listen, if it's been published by Black Odyssey Media, I'm gonna
Hmm.
read it because it's
Yeah.
always good. It is always good.
So I had reached out to the CEO. I thought I didn't know that she was launching a publishing company. I knew she was a literary agent. And I had reached out to her to represent me. And I sent the 3 chapters of my book along and, asked if she was taking on any clients. And so I got an email back and found out she's no longer in that space and that she was starting a publishing company. And so then we had some talks and all, and I don't think it hit me right away that this was going to be a traditional deal, because I had been under kind of like an indie publisher before. It was exclusively through Amazon, that was it, not nationwide. So it wasn't until we got more and more in talks that I'm like, oh, this is going to be pretty big. And she was just very professional, very supportive, took time to jump on the phone with me. Anytime I had questions, I went through the contract line by line. Okay, so you're saying this is that. And that's how I was actually their first debut author. Yeah. So The Accidental Queen was their debut novel.
Yes,
Yeah, and they
congratulations.
just a very long list of very talented and amazing authors with Black Odyssey, and I'm proud to be a part of the team.
Yes, because I'm telling you, Tainted Liberties was 5 stars.
Thank you. Thank you.
I enjoyed that book so much.
That book I think probably gets the most um, um, criticism.
Yeah, yes. 'Cause
It
listen,
does. Like I said, it's not for everybody, and it's
mm-mm.
expected. It's okay. That's why I put
But
the disclaimer. But
I
those
feel
that
like
get it,
right. I feel like Tasty Liberties is a book really black men really need to read.
hmm
Really need to read.
yeah,
But also, I think about this too. They see these stories in the media, honey, and they still just.
yeah, yeah.
Anywho, that's a conversation for another day. So, how do you approach creating like unique voices for like multiple characters?
um, it honestly just comes. It's so first I'm a Gemini. My mind is always on go. And so when I immediately come up with a storyline, the minute I know what I want the story to be like, it's kind of like I start knowing how I want the characters, how the story's going to end, pieces within it, how I want them to look. All of this is coming together. And so then when you put it on paper, you kind of have to flip flop. So with The Accidental Queen, when I'm writing about Ebony, I have to put myself in her shoes. As a woman, I pull from my own experiences as a woman, my own romantic experiences, things like that. But then when it flips over to Dafari, to the male space, I'm not a man. So I have to rely on things that are realistic. There's times I might call my boyfriend and say, "Hey, is this something a man would say?" you know, would a
I'd be
man
like,
really
I
say
do that
this?
too.
You know, how would you feel if I did? So I'll do something like that, and he'll say, maybe no or yes, something like that. So that's kind of how I do it. I have to flip flop.
So, what all genres of books do you read?
I like every genre except for horror.
Hmm.
That's the only genre I don't read. I love romance, of course. I love thrillers. I love mysteries. Historic romance is kind of right above horror. That's a lot,
Hmm.
depending on, if it's fictional or not, things like that. Once it gets into that period where, that slavery period and stuff, I can only do but so much of that. Um, but yeah, I like all genres. Rom coms. It's just I can't get into horror. I don't
Really?
know why. Yeah, yeah. And I don't watch it either. Maybe
Hmm.
it's changed. When I was younger, we had Freddy Krueger, Jason, we had that. And I watched it back then, but then over the years, it's like the horror got bad or something. I didn't enjoy any of the horror movies, and so I just stopped watching them, and I don't read them either. So,
So, out of all the books you have written, what which character in your books is your favorite and why?
my favorite character is in a book that has not been released yet, called The Seductive Assassin. Her name is Haven, and she is an assassin. Um, I She's my all-time favorite character. I had previously published her in another. When I self-published it, her name was. The book was called Haven after her name. But I love her because she is just fearless. Oh man, she was so much fun to write and to show her growth from being this cold-hearted assassin that just doesn't care about anything, anybody, will kill somebody on the spot, to now falling in love and having feelings and getting a little softer and trying to figure out how to be in a relationship. She has never been in a relationship because of what she does for a living. So she was my all-time favorite character to write.
Oh, and I'm excited. I'm ready to read that
Yeah.
one.
Yes, I absolutely love her character.
What's the most surprising thing you learned while writing your books?
I would say that I do have the ability to bring forth different voices. It's very surprising that you can write so many books and they don't sound the same, that the characters don't sound the same. You don't realize it until you play it back on audio or if you read it again. So that's always a surprise. Like sometimes I'll read and I'll look at the book and say, oh, wow, I wrote this? This doesn't sound like me at all. As an author, some pieces of us can come through in our stories, but I do have the ability to really separate personal from the fiction. There are some authors who they draw from they draw more from their personal experiences, and their books are a lot of what they've gone through or things that they've seen, and it's always good to do that because I'm sure there are so many readers who relate to that author, and I've done that some. But for me, I'm better at being able to separate because I can make the character however I want the character to be, even if the character's no resemblance to me. Like the seductive assassin, she's a killer. You know, she's a killer. She doesn't care. She, which is completely different than who I am. She has no compassion. So in order to do that, you separate the real from the fiction.
Have you ever thought about leaving the book space?
I have actually. I actually have. I feel like the book world is changing, especially, for someone who's been doing this early on before Book Talk and things like that. I think Book Talk is an amazing space to be in. You guys are awesome. Like, I love the rise of the podcasts and the content creators, and it's just so dope to see. Like, every time I'm on TikTok and I'm seeing somebody, most of them aren't my books, but I'm invested. I'm like, oh, what is she reading today? Because I follow so many. So I follow the ones that do read, that have done mine, and then so many that don't, but I'm invested into, like, what are they talking about today? But with that change, as I said before, has come some not so great things that, there is, it's more so about popularity, I think, now. And it's just really, really, really changing in a lot of ways, and it can become very, I'm not going to say stressful, but it can have you thinking about if you should take a step back and reevaluate, still being in this space. Also, genre, what is everybody reading now? As you probably know from reading my books, you know, you have to speak to your audience.
Right.
And that can be tough, to try to find your people. That can be a little tough. So you find your romance readers, but do you like romance suspense? Okay, you like romance suspense. Are you okay if the characters are black? Okay, cool. But wait a minute, there's 2 points of views. Are you good with that? Okay, cool. Hey, good with that. But listen, it's not really steamy. It's not considered smut. Is that okay? Because that's what's really in right now. I
Right.
got some sex scenes, but not really. So that's kind of the thing. If you are a reader that you love smut, I don't even know why they call it smut. I say steamy. I like to say steamy,
I'm
but
just old school sex scenes.
yes, sexy, steamy, but they're
Just
calling them
old
smut
school.
now. They call them smut, and now they
I
got
had to
me
go and
saying,
research. Like when I first started, I'm sorry to cut you off, but when I
"No,
first started TikTok, all I saw was smut, smut, smut,
yeah."
smut. I said, what the hell does smut mean? Is that an acronym for something like what?
Yes. So I've actually had readers that's like, I mean, it wasn't steamy enough for me, and that's fine. But it
Right.
goes back to what I'm saying. It's not just about romance anymore like it used to be. You will never, my books will always be kind of what you read. It's going to be romance, but it's going to be a lot of edge of your seat suspense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because of how my mind works. Um, so I don't really write just romance. It's always going to be romance, suspense, edge of your seat. But then you got all these other things that come into play that you have to find your audience. I always put a disclaimer out there with Tainted Liberties. Hey, this is my only non-romance. This is a non-romance because the cover can kind of look. Somebody might pick that up and think that it's romance. Everybody
I
doesn't
thought
look
it
at the
was a
genre.
thriller. I really did. I thought it was a thriller.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what Amazon categorized it as. So
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, some don't get me started on Amazon. Um, but yeah, so I always put that out there to say you're not going to get romance with this, and there's not even going to be any sex scenes in this
Mm-hmm.
either.
Right.
Just so that the reader is not overly disappointed.
Right.
So yeah.
I want to go back to your point uh, when you mentioned that book talking, like Bookstagram, is
Mhm.
changing. And as a person that I just joined, it'll be a year in like a couple months.
Yeah.
Because I always been a reader. I just never been like this vocal about like how
Mhm.
much I love books and stuff like that. And that
Yeah.
has been a trending topic
Mhm.
recently about it's changing, and I see why,
Mhm.
because you do have a lot of black people saying that they don't like, you know, this because, black people need to do better in this, or y'all need to stay in urban romance or urban fiction and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, y'all, every black person is not going to, write about the thug love and the struggle love. And those stories are great because they always have a
Yeah.
happy ending at the end. But just be a little bit more open, like I said, with
Mhm.
Tainted Liberties. And I'm not a really big fan of reading interracial
Mhm.
relationships. You know,
Yeah.
not saying that I'm just gonna just, stir away like,
Mhm.
no, get that out of my face.
Yeah.
I'm going to be open. And like I said, I'm so happy that I was very open minded to reading Tainted Liberties because it taught me a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I grew up reading urban fiction.
Mhm.
I think we all did because that's all that we had for a long
Exactly.
time.
And
Um,
also, because I know back in like junior high, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like us that was writing
mhm.
the thrillers and the
It wasn't.
fantasies
We
and
had
stuff like.
Terry McMillan, Elin Harris. I think Beverly Jackson had some stuff back then. And of course Omar Tyree had the Fly Girl. So
Hmm.
we had some. I grew up reading urban fiction. Could I write it? Absolutely not. I could not write it. It's not my experience. And yes, it doesn't have to be your experience to write it because we write fictional people all the time. Being in Africa isn't my experience either. However, I don't feel like I would be able to do that type of story any justice. I really don't. It's not my thing. So I stick with my thing to be able to bring the best product that I can bring. And that's romance suspense. Most of my books are second chance romance and forbidden romance. That's what most of them are. So,
And that
um,
goes into my next question that I was going to ask. You think you'll ever write a thriller?
I think I may at some point.
A
I
thriller
think I might.
romance?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't stepped out of the romance yet, but I may, and see what happens. I just have such a love for the romance community. Romance readers just, they fall in love with the men, and oh, that's my book thing.
My book
It's
boyfriend?
Yes, my book boyfriend is so fun to watch. It really is, and that's why I follow so many of the book talkers, and it's so fun to watch what they're reading weekly, who their new book boyfriends are, and just the excitement surrounding romance. So, it's just near and dear to my heart. But I do love thrillers.
Yeah. So tell me, what was for those that are watching, okay, I have the Accidental Queen here. Tell me the inspiration behind how this book got started.
So the inspiration for the Accidental Queen, I was always drawn to stories about queens growing up. Um, but they never looked like me. So I pretty much watched everything from the Tudor dynasty. King Henry VIII. Of course, then you had Downtown Abbey, and all those period pieces and stuff that aired on TV. There never really was any shows where the queen looked like myself. So I said, well, I'm gonna write my own story, and that's where the inspiration for the Accidental Queen came from. And this was when I was a kid, a young kid, that I said one day I was going to write a story about a black queen, and that's what I did.
I love that. And you said something that was so, so powerful, writing your own stories, because
Mhm.
I am very big on us telling our own stories, and that's the reason why I created this podcast. Because
Mhm.
as a reader, and if I love you so much, honey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go buy your whole catalog. Okay?
Yes,
But I
yes.
want to know more about you, and why you decided to start doing this, because let me tell you something, everybody have a story, but everyone cannot be an author.
Well, my first love was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I used to write poems a lot, and I read a lot. I had this, so I told you I'm from a small town. It wasn't hardly anything to do. People from big cities, they have they have trains and buses and after school programs and boys and girls clubs and all these different things. We had nothing. I'm from a town that had one high school. We just got a Chick-fil-A not that long ago. It just was nothing really to do. So I would read a lot. And I had this big bookshelf of books. And my mom, when the Scholastic Book Fair came, oh, I would ball out. She'd give me, no matter how much I asked for, she'd give me whatever I wanted, and I'd come home like with all these books. And so I started writing poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is I entered this poetry contest, and I won first place, grand prize. And it was something about what I want to be when I grow up. Maybe I'll be this, or maybe I'll be that. That was the thing. So, in order to claim the prize, I had to fly to Chicago. Nobody in my family had ever been on a plane. Okay. And my parents weren't having it. They were like, Chicago? No, we're not doing that. And so I had to forfeit my win and give it to someone else. And so right then and there, I said, one day people are going to read my stories. People are going to read. I'm going to write a book, and people are going to read it. And so from poetry, I went into short stories. And I actually won an Arthur Award in high school for a short story. So that's really what sparked it.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I want to
Yeah.
get you an award now.
Yep, I was like 12, I think, 12 or 13, something like that.
Do
And
you know what the
yeah,
award was?
it was, I know it was a cash prize. It wasn't a lot, but it was like 5,000 cash. That's a lot to like a 12 or 13-year-old. It was going to be featured in some type of magazine. And I can't think of what the other one was. I wish I would have remembered the name of it. But I was just so excited to have won. Because back then, it wasn't email or anything. I had to write it. I didn't type it out. I wrote it out, mailed it off, and then maybe weeks, maybe a month later, I got the official notification that, I had won. So, and I was disappointed that I didn't get to do it. And I was like, that's okay. One day I'm gonna be an author. And
And look at you.
yeah.
Look at you. I love that.
Yeah.
Listen, way to turn
Yeah.
lemons into lemonade.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give new authors that's looking to enter into this space? Because this space it's not easy.
It's not. It's not. I would say first write the book. I get approached by a lot of people who say, "Yeah, I want to write a book. I don't know how." Yes, you do. Just write it. They have editors. They have sensitivity readers. You have all these things at your exposure. Just write the book. You can worry about everything else after it's done. But first, get it on the page. That's the first advice I have. And then the second advice I have is to find your people. I've said that multiple times throughout this interview. Your book will not appeal to everyone. If I have a Facebook following of 5,000 people and they only love rom-com books and I'm constantly posting romance, that's not going to get me any sales. So you have to be able to find your people who enjoy what you write and be okay with criticism and constructive feedback. It only makes you better.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm hoping to do book to film at some point. That's what I would really love to do. Of course, I love writing, but I would really love to be able to see the words played out on screen. The Seductive Assassin that's being released, and there is a third Queen's book that will be released. So, if you read The Defiant Queen, you'll see what that third book is about. So, The Defiant Queen is Shea and Baz's story. People have reached out and they're like, we want their story. We want to hear about them. So I wrote their story. And so the third book in the Queen's world will come from that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Before we wrap up, let everyone know where they can find you. Give them your socials, your website.
Yeah, so I can be reached on TikTok, Arthur L.R. Jackson, Facebook, Arthur L.R. Jackson, Instagram, L.R. Jackson Arthur, and that's pretty much it.
Is there any final words you would like to say before we close out?
Yes, I want to just thank readers for reading my work. I do this for you guys. I love the feedback, and the podcasters and bloggers and content creators. You guys are all awesome. Please keep doing what you're doing. I think without you guys, there wouldn't be as much of a presence for Black writers. we didn't get the amount of promotion and we didn't get as seen before Book Talk, before you guys. So I know there were some Instagram things, but TikTok has really been able to bring more awareness for us, and it's worked out really well for a lot of authors. And when one makes it, we all make it. So,
Yes.
so thank you all for that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this was fun. This was fun. Y'all, Tainted Liberties is out. The Accidental Queen is out. Y'all go check out my girl's catalog, okay? Go read her books.
Yes.
Leave them reviews, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Create that content. DM her, y'all. Thank y'all so much for listening to Covers and Pages podcast. Y'all go follow LR Jackson on all her platforms. Follow me. And we done. Bye, y'all.
That's a wrap on this chapter of the Covers and Pages podcast. If you loved today's conversation, don't forget to follow, rate, and share the podcast with your fellow book lovers. You can also find us on Instagram at Covers and Pages Podcast. Follow the host at Rese Lisa Reads on social media. Until next time, keep reading, keep listening, and keep turning those pages.